All right. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the July 25th, 2019 Planning Board public meeting. Please join me in a salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be advised this meeting has been duly advertised according to Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975, otherwise known as the Sunshine Law. Notice of the 2019 annual meeting schedule has been provided to the officially designated newspapers, the Township Clerk, and posted on the bulletin board here at the Township Municipal Complex. May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Scobo, excuse me, Vice Chair Julian and Mr. Deb are absent. Mr. Scobo?
Here.
Weinstein?
Here.
Deason?
Present.
Mr. Wagner?
Here.
Mr. Hashtag?
Here.
Mr. Santa Romita?
Here.
Committeeman Lapani?
Here.
Mayor Delcor?
Here.
Chair Scott?
Here. We do not have any meeting minutes, but we do have a few resolutions this evening. First resolution, Terrace Industrial Park, file 08-PB-08-MJF. It's an extension request. May I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, all members of the board present except for Mr. Weinstein are eligible to vote. And yes, and Mr. Santa Marita are not eligible to vote.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on days? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Scobo?
Yes.
Mr. Deason?
Yes.
Mr. Wagner?
Yes.
Mr. Hashtag?
Yes.
Mr. Santa Romita?
And he's
No,
ineligible.
Committeeman Lapani?
Yes.
Mayor Delcor?
Yes.
Chair Scott?
Yes, next up, resolution for Primrose Schools Child Care Center, file number 19-PB-06-MSPV. May I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a
Second.
We have a second.
The eligible members, Mr. Chairman, are yourself, Mr. Hashtag, Mr. Peason, and Mr. Scobo.
Thank you.
So
Sorry.
who made the motion second?
Ron made the motion, and,
I seconded it.
okay,
So
good.
Four.
Okay, any discussion from the dais?
The chair, five. The chair, Mr. Hashtag, Mr. Delcor, Mr. Peason, and Mr. Scobo.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Scobo?
Here. Yes.
Deason?
Yes.
Mr. Hashtag?
Yes.
Mayor Delcor?
Yes.
Chair Scott?
Yes, final resolution, 3 Ronson LLC, otherwise known as Village Point Hillsborough Center, file 19-PB-07-MSPV. May I have a motion?
I'll move that, Mr. Chairman. Second.
Okay, Ms.
The
Bernstein?
eligible members are Mr. Hashtag, Mr. Lapani, Mr. Wagner, and Mr. Peason.
Okay, thank you. Is there any discussion from the dais? Okay, seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Deason?
Yes.
Mr. Wagner?
Yes.
Mr. Hashtag?
Yes.
Committeeman Lapani?
Yes.
No, I'm not eligible on that one?
That's it,
Oh, okay, sorry,
Mr. Chairman.
missed one. Okay, we do not have any planning board business this evening, so next business from the floor, if there's anyone that would like to comment, make a comment to this board on matters not on this evening's agenda. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record, please.
Maria Janusik, 720 East Breck Avenue, Manville, New Jersey. I'm also a Hillsborough Township property owner. Together with my husband, Walter Janusik, we own Block 86, Lot 3, 2155 Camp Plain Road in Hillsborough. I was here at the last meeting, and I would like to find out who everyone is, because you did mention that some people can't vote or whatever. Could I get that information again, because it's difficult with people saying things and not knowing who it is?
Mr. Chairman.
No, we're not at that point for eligibility to vote on this application.
Okay,
That was on
I'm
the,
not-
that was on
I'm-
the other resolutions.
I'm not asking for eligibility to vote. I'm asking who is present, who is here.
Everybody,
Names are right up here.
they're right up here.
All
Okay.
members except Mr. Julian and Mr. Deb. Ms. Janusik are here.
Everyone here this evening is eligible to vote.
So these are all the regular planning board members, or are there alternates here?
There's
There's
an
an alternate.
alternate here,
And who is the alternate?
Mr. Santa Marita.
And who is he alternate for? Who is the board person who is not here?
Mr. Julian is
Mr.
not
Julian
here.
is not here. Okay. Also, all right, so once the application for the Sherman Tract is before the board, these gentlemen will introduce themselves, because I don't know who these people are. At the last meeting, no one identified people. I don't know who is here that's giving information that's going to impact my property.
They will be giving sworn testimony, and they will have to state their name and their credentials.
And these gentlemen here,
These are all township professionals.
township professionals, may I know who these people are?
If you look at our, Mr. Euro, the board engineer, Mr. Maskey, the planning director, and I'm Eric Bernstein, I'm the board attorney.
And this gentleman with the glasses?
Is the court stenographer as required by the planning board for planning board meetings.
Thank you. Okay.
By the way, Ms. Janusik, we're not at the application yet, so you're premature on the agenda. The
Okay,
portion-
I know that we're not at the application, but it's just that there are people here, and I don't know if they have involvement with the application or if they were with the prior things that were mentioned on the agenda. So I'd just like clarification of who is here and what's going on. Okay. What I wanted to ask is, who is the owner of the Hillsborough Township property, which is Block 86, Lot 21, and is identified as the Sherman Tract?
Again,
not on that
not on that application
But
yet.
when I ask when I come up to ask questions, I'm directed to ask questions only of the witness who is testifying. So
Correct.
if I ask this question and that person is not qualified, I don't get an answer to this question. So then my question is there someone here who will be able to give me the answer of who is the owner of Hillsborough Township property, Block 86, Lot 21? Will there be someone here that I can ask that question and get an answer?
So,
Is that
here-
what it
Ms. Janusik, I'm going to cut you off, all right? There is a formal process that we go through at these planning boards,
Yes.
okay?
Yes.
The chairman specifically indicated this time period is related to matters that are not on the agenda.
Right.
When there's a witness there, you get the opportunity after every witness to question the testimony of that witness. After the entire application is done, you will have an opportunity to come up from the public and comment and ask your questions.
So that
We are not on this application, so I'm not going to answer any of your questions.
I just want to clarify, so that anyone who is a witness is asked only questions specific to that witness. but
Correct.
at
As
the
if it was a
conclusion-
court hearing.
Excuse me?
As if it was a court hearing, correct.
So at the conclusion, then I can ask any questions related to this application.
You can ask whatever you like. You may not get the answer you want, but you can ask whatever you like.
Okay. Okay, so that any questions regarding the letters that I received as notices, all of that, I can ask later.
Yes, correct.
I believe, ma'am, you asked the question about the notice at the last meeting. So there was no notice for this meeting, as you're well aware of, so I believe that question's been answered.
I'm talking about notices sent via certified mail. I can ask about those as well.
Which notice is that?
One was a notice regarding this public hearing regarding Block 86, Lot 21.
Which you asked at the last meeting, it was
Yes, I
answered.
asked, but I also have questions regarding the content of that notice.
You asked about that, and
No,
that
I
was
did not.
answered. Yes, you
Yes,
did.
you
You
did. No, I
questioned-
didn't.
Yes, you did. You questioned the issue, and I apologize to the board. You questioned the issue of the propriety of the notice. There was testimony on it, counsel for the applicant commented on it, and you were told that the notice by me was sufficient. Not going to change 2 weeks later when there wasn't any notice. The answer is no.
I had asked if that, right, was a legal notice, but there is content within that that was given to me as a property owner adjacent to Block 86, Lot 21, which I want to question. And that is what I'm going to ask about at the end of when we have
Go
that
ahead.
public.
Sure.
And as
Okay,
the
all
mayor
right, thank
indicated,
you.
you may not get an answer.
But, all right, so my question is,
No,
No.
am I legally entitled to be here?
You are legally entitled to
And
be
to
here.
ask
And you are
questions.
legally
Yes.
entitled to ask a question. The answer, however, may or may not be responsive to the question and/or may or may not be responsive at all, depending upon what the question is.
Thank you.
Anyone else would like to comment on matters not on this evening's agenda? Seeing none, we do not have any considerations of ordinances, so now we will move into applications. There's a continuation of the RPM Development LLC, otherwise known as the Sherman Tract Phase 1, File 19-PB-11-MS/MSPV, Block 86, Lot 21. And this is continued from our last meeting of July 11th without further notice. Counselor?
Before council makes its statement to the record, Mr. Chairman, there are 4 members of the board who were not present at last meeting, but who are allowed pursuant to the municipal land use law to sign a certification by an absent board member, making them eligible to participate and attend tonight if they have certified that they have either viewed the video recording, listened to the audio recording, or read the transcripts. All 4 of these individuals have indicated they have viewed the video recording of the meeting of July 11th. They are Mr. Hashtag, Mr. Weinstein, Mr. Scobo, and Mr. Peason. Therefore, they are all eligible to participate and potentially vote, Mr. Chairman.
Thank
All
you.
members of the board are eligible to participate and vote this evening.
All right, thank you, and I thank you, those board members, for taking the time. Counselor?
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Mike Ogrodnik. I'm an attorney at Savo, Schalk, Gillespie, Ogrodnik, and Fisher in Somerville. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, RPM Development. As the board may recall, at the July 11th public hearing, RPM introduced Elizabeth Kalinich, who is a vice president of RPM, to provide a background of their company, their leasing, management, social services programs, experience in the Westerling Place project in Hillsborough, and the proposed 88-unit COA Sherman Tract project overview, including and detailing the affordability requirements, proposed income distribution, tenant selection policy, and types of applicants that will qualify for the proposed residence. Our second witness last hearing was Kevin Shelley, who is our professional civil engineer from Mid-Atlantic Engineering Partners. He provided the site plan testimony for the preliminary and final major site plan approvals to subdivide Blocks 86, Lot 21, owned by Hillsborough Township, into 2 lots of approximately 31.3 acres each, and to develop Lot 21.01 for the project known as Sherman Tract Phase 1, consisting of the 88 multifamily dwelling rental units. Mr. Shelley summarized the site condition, proposed improvements, landscape buffering, site layout, trash, utilities, signage, lighting, sewer tie-in to the Municipal Utilities Authority, the amenities, sidewalks, traffic circulation, and specifically how the proposed site plan complies with the bulk standards of the redevelopment plan. Mr. Shelley also explained stormwater management guidelines from New Jersey DEP and how, with the addition of the bioswales, the stormwater measures far exceeded the DEP stormwater management requirements, which again could be handled just by the detention basin. We introduced our professional planner, Art Bernard, who explained the standards for the request for reliefs of the ordinance, specifically 1, a request for an economic hardship waiver from Section 188-164 of the Land Development Ordinance to reduce the tree replacement requirements of the ordinance. B, the variance relief from the tree mitigation ordinance for tree removal. And C, the design waiver from Section 188-57 for the minimum lighting requirements, since this applicant does not propose to illuminate the entire site and does not propose to illuminate the forest area in the back near the brook. Mr. Bernard also explained how the proposed project conforms to the Sherman redevelopment plan, which plan was adopted by the Hillsborough Township Committee on March 13th, 2019, as required as part of the settlement of the Mount Laurel litigation, which imposed COA requirements on the municipality. We do have our traffic engineer here to testify tonight if there's any questions. I do not plan to introduce him. I do not anticipate introducing the engineering again. We believe we have all of our engineering testimony of record. However, if the board has specific questions and would like me to reintroduce any of our prior witnesses, with the exception of the planner, we will certainly make my clients available to testify. Unless there are any other additional questions, legal questions, I would ask to swear in our architect, Robert Cogan. He's from Barton Partners, to give an overview of the overall design and concept of this development.
Swear in, please.
Do you swear in testimony you give tonight is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Into the mic, you state your name for me.
I do. Robert Cogan, C-O-G-A-N. Okay.
So first we need to qualify you as an expert. Can you give us your professional and licensure experience in the state of New Jersey?
Yes, I have a Bachelor of Architecture degree from Virginia Tech. Been practicing architecture for 37 years. Been licensed in the state since 1994. And I've testified before several dozen boards in the state of New Jersey.
I would ask that the board accept his qualifications as an expert in the area of architecture.
Okay, unless anyone from the dais objects, we will accept your qualifications. You may proceed.
Thank you. I have 6 slides to show you tonight. Pretty straightforward. To elevations and some floor plans of both the multifamily buildings and of the proposed clubhouse. On the
Have they been
Hold
entered?
that microphone up if you would.
Look closer?
Just-
Okay.
Yeah, because the people in the back can't hear unless it's.
Fair enough.
Thanks.
Sure. So what we have here on the screen, we have 2 different building types, as Mr. Shelley had already explained. We have 8-unit buildings and we have 6-unit buildings. On the screen right now is an 8-unit building, and those are the 4 elevations.
Excuse me, I just want to make sure, have these exhibits been identified, or are they?
Yes, these have been pre-marked. They're in the packet that we put
Okay.
together for all our exhibits, but we also have, they've been pre-marked, but we can mark them again if the board so requires.
Why don't we?
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
A2.
I'm going to mark that one on the left and the one on the right. So can you describe what's been marked as applicant 2?
Yes, so that applicant 2 are the 4 elevations representing the one of the 8-unit buildings. And in general terms, these are 2-story buildings, and they are certainly residential in quality in terms of their vernacular. They're pitched roofs, horizontal siding, windows, roof overhangs, and balconies and such. I think it's a couple of interesting, important things to note is that it is traditional in its massing. You know, there are pitched roofs and occasional gables, and there's some stone bases to kind of anchor it to the ground. But it is not strictly adhering to like a colonial style. There's no false shutters and such. What we're doing here, we have 3 different colors of horizontal vinyl siding, and we have 2 different colors of vertical vinyl siding. We also have the adhered or engineered stone veneer. On the right-hand side of the sheet, you can see the 2 side. What I was just describing basically was the front elevation, which is in the upper left corner of the sheet. And what's there, you see that there are several of the front doors. These are, every unit has its own direct entry. There's no common entry, no corridors, and that'll be shown in the floor plan. The end units have their entrances on the side, and you can see them on the 2 drawings to the right, underneath the porch overhangs. And I think the other interesting thing is on the rear elevation, we took some care to introduce the same colors so that it was not just a single color of building. So the buildings have a good bit of, in my opinion, a good bit of life and elegance. The next slide here is this very much the same. It's just a 6-unit building. The only difference here is it is 20 feet shorter because one of the units essentially dropped out. But it's the same exact materials and same architectural vernacular. Next slide here, this represents a first floor plan, a ground floor plan of an 8-unit building. The orange color, if you will, on the left represents a 3-bedroom unit. You can see its side entrance under the porch on the far left. A yellow is a one-bedroom unit, and then those more tannish colors on the right are those are two-bedroom units. You can also see that they have front doors, the ones in the middle, and they also have doors leading to staircases, and those staircases are to the second floor, which are separate units above. They're essentially sort of stacked flats, is what we call them in our industry. However, as you've seen in the elevations look more townhouse-like in the fact that they're 2 stories.
This all part of A2, Mr.?
Yes.
And the next slide is a similar 6-unit building. It's short, only 81 feet wide, and this is where one of the 20-foot wide one-bedroom units has dropped out. As you can see, though, there's articulation on the front elevation. The wall is not a straight wall. There's ins and outs. Those provide opportunity for us for some detailing and some shadow and things like that. That's the residential buildings. Next slide is elevations, 4 elevations of the community building, the community or clubhouse building, if you will. This A3. In the upper left corner is the front elevation. That's the one, if you recall from the site plan, there's a long linear view down a boulevard of sorts, and that's what the terminus is. And that's where we decorated it and showed some prominence of columns and a shed dormer up top. Similar materials and same color. What you did not go with multiple colors, one color for this building here. It is roughly, by my calculations, 1,785 square feet. And again, 1 story. I might add that both buildings, the typical residential buildings and then this building, both conform to the redevelopment plan relative to height. And then this is a floor plan of this clubhouse or community building. Walking in is a lobby in the central area. To the left are some leasing and social service offices and a waiting area. To the right is the gathering room. That's the largest room for the various functions that RPM has already testified about. And then there's storage areas and restrooms and a kitchenette. It's about 50 feet wide and 36 feet deep.
Thank you. I have no further direct questions.
No, that's all right. Any members from the dais?
Can you just talk about, is there anything that's non-conforming to any of the architectural standards related to the zoning or?
No, everything conforms.
Eric, do I need to have a motion?
Motion public.
Okay. May I have a motion to open
So
to
moved.
public?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay. I'm going to set up some ground rules because we have a few more folks out this evening, and considering how things went last time, you'll be allowed 5 minutes to question the witness so that we can move on, make sure everyone gets an opportunity to ask their questions. It's one bite at the apple. We will have an opportunity to come back towards the end of the meeting to ask questions of any of the witnesses at the end. So with that, I will open up public to my left, your right, if there's anyone in the audience. No? Just come up to the mic, okay, don't see any. You can come up to the mic.
I would just like to give
You have to.
No.
5 minutes. That's all. I'd like to give you my 5 minutes, so we can.
No, we're not.
No, she gets 5 minutes. I will open up to this side. If anyone would like to come up, please come to the mic, state your name and address for the record, and questions will be directed to this witness and this witness only.
Maria Janusik, 720 East Freck Avenue, Manville, New Jersey. I and my husband Walter are owners of Block 86, Lot 3. We are directly adjoining Block 86, Lot 21. So we are on the certified list of property owners within 200 feet of the property. May I have the gentleman's name again, please?
Robert Cogan, C-O-G-A-N.
Okay, Mr. Cogan, at the beginning of your report, you said something referred to applicant 2.
I didn't.
No?
that was a
slide,
The slide was marked as A2, applicant 2 for exhibit.
So what does that mean, applicant?
But-
Your mic's-
The exhibit has been marked A2, A designating that it's the applicant's exhibit, and it's the second exhibit they're introducing at the hearing.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Are you connected with RPM, RPM Development Group?
No, they're just my client.
Okay, so they are your client? So
That's correct.
you hired them?
No, ma'am.
They hired you?
That's correct.
They hired you? Okay. And someone had asked a question about zoning standards. What is the zone of this property?
That's really not in my
That's not
purview.
the purview of an
But
architect.
someone had asked about if he was adhering to zoning standards.
said-
What is the zone of this property?
It's not, I asked him about the architectural standards within the zone.
Okay, so he would not know what the zone of this
Correct.
property is?
Just what the standards were architecturally.
Thank you.
Anyone else that would like to question this witness? Okay. Wait.
You almost got it.
Almost got it. Got to move a little quicker.
Merrill Bisberg, 4 Hickory Hill Road. I'm just coming here now because this is the planner, and I want to make sure there's a community impact statement presentation. I don't know if there's an economist here also.
He's the architect.
It's the architect.
Okay, so,
This-
planner,
it's
I
to the
was not here
witness.
last, I was not here last time.
Okay,
I
but the
admit.
questions are to the witness, not to us.
Okay, so I have to ask another witness, right? Just want to make sure.
The planning testimony's already been done at last hearing. We're not introducing any more planning testimony.
Okay, and you don't have a separate economist for community impact or a separate planner?
No.
Okay, so then
Look-
when this witness is finished, I will come back up and ask my question for planning before this
There's
is
going to be
voted
no
on.
planning testimony today. It's already been done. There's no planning testimony today.
And just so that you know, Mayor, there is a community impact statement on file, so you may go to the planning office and obtain a copy. Anyone else for this witness? Okay.
I don't know if you heard that. Okay, I just want to make sure.
I'm trying to figure out when I can make a comment, because it's not this witness, so,
At the very end.
okay, thank you.
Unless there are any specific questions for our witnesses from the board, this concludes our direct testimony for this application.
Okay, so you're resting. Is there any comments from the dais, questions from the dais? Professionals? I know that we were in receipt of the Phase 1 environmental assessment report, so hopefully everyone's had an opportunity to review that. If there's any questions regarding that, because I know that was a request of the Environmental Commission.
I'd just like to ask if the environmental report, was that presented back at the Environmental Commission, or have they had a chance to review that? Mr. Julian's not here, so I didn't.
No,
He normally covers that.
it was just completed, I think about 3 days ago and submitted. Ms. Klinich?
And just to remind you, still under oath.
Sure. Hi, good evening. The report was completed and sent over to the township earlier this week, and it was also submitted digitally. And we can,
I'm sorry, also submitted to, I did.
to the planning department via email.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll just need to ensure that the Environmental Commission has a chance to review that.
That's
Right.
fine.
Okay, so just for the benefit of the audience, which professionals do we have here this evening in case there's any
So-
follow-up questions?
We have our engineer, Kevin Shelley.
Okay.
We have, obviously, our representatives from RPM. We have, again, Robert Kogan, our architect. We also have David Shropshire, our traffic engineer. That's it. Art Bernard is not available.
Right. Now recall. Okay. So I will open up to this side if anyone would like to pose any questions to the representative from RPM. Okay, on my right, your left. Yeah, no, come on.
Including last week's testimony?
Sure.
Thank you for following the rules, Susan.
Give me that 5 minutes.
Take it out of
Susan Gulliford, Hunt Club Road. I have a follow-up question on your presentation, the Who Will Live at Concord, the eligibility criteria. I happened to see an item today that was attributed to a release from RPM that 5 of the units are being set aside as for homeless. I just was wondering, is the eligibility criteria the same for those 5 units as all the other units?
She's got it.
Thank you. Yes, our homeless tenants are also, they have to complete a full certification when they submit an application for an apartment.
Okay. Also, well, it's not a question to him. I was hoping your traffic engineer would come up briefly.
Well, we'll get him up. Okay, are there any other questions for this witness?
Joseph P. Maloney, 27 Stonewick Drive, Hillsborough, New Jersey. For this specific witness, mention of dogs and cats, pets available that tenants could bring into the prospective tenants could have.
Sure. So I don't think RPM management has made a decision about this particular development, but we do in our other developments allow cats and dogs of certain breeds and sizes for a minimal fee.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Maria Janusik, 720 East Freck Avenue, Manville, New Jersey, owner, Block 86, Lot 3, 2155 Camp Plain Road. At the meeting on July 11, the public hearing, Board Attorney Eric Bernstein had provided information to me that if I were to present certain things, I would have to be sworn in. And I would have to provide copies of reports and things that I was presenting. So does that apply also to all of the sworn-in witnesses of the applicant RPM? Does that apply also, that they should provide copies of what they presented and also any kind of statistics, reports, whatever, that they have to provide the source of that information?
They've been all sworn in, as you're well aware, and they have provided documentation relative to the testimony they gave. I indicated to you, so that the record is complete, that if you wanted to introduce a report for the board's consideration, you had to make sure that there were sufficient copies for the board to review and a copy for the applicant. I also indicated if you were going to give testimony, you were going to have to give testimony sworn that relates to whatever expertise you have relative to that testimony.
Okay, thank you, I understand that. What I'm saying is that all of these witnesses who were sworn in, who are saying that they are experts, that they have expertise, where is their information for us? I'm a property owner, and by law, I should be given records and know who is saying what that's going to profoundly impact my property. So do you have records of the
We have the testimony, we have the testimony, we have the reports we have records of, and we have the testimony of the various professionals as to their expertise and the board's determination to grant their approval as experts in their field, which is common in land use board applications.
Do they have copies of records that they used to provide their expert testimony?
They're not, if they do, they're in their own possession, they're not required
So
to
they
provide.
are not required.
Ms. Janusik, Please let me finish.
Go ahead, but you're taking a lot of time.
I'm not taking your
Yes,
5
you are.
minutes. The answer is that they are not required to provide the backup information relative to their reports. They are merely required to provide the reports and the sites upon which the reports are based.
Okay, so when I mentioned the CME report that was paid for by the township, you told me I would have to provide all of that information.
No,
would
I
have
said,
to
no, I
provide
said
it.
to you, you would have to provide, let's make sure we're correct.
Go ahead.
I told you you were going to, if you wanted to introduce the CME report for consideration by the board, you were going to have to provide copies of the CME report, not the backup to the CME report, the report itself, to the board for the board's consideration and to the applicant's counsel. That was what you were told 2 weeks ago, not that you had to give the backup to the CME report, only the report itself.
Okay, that sounds a little different today than it did last
And
time.
that if you were going to testify to the report, you had to be sworn in because you were testifying against the report.
And the question of whether or not she could testify because she is not an expert in the field, nor did she provide the report.
Okay, what is the zone of Block 86?
That wouldn't be a question for this
Oh,
witness.
to this witness only?
Yes.
Are you aware of the zone of this property? Block 86, Lot 21?
That wouldn't be her area of
But if
expertise.
she can answer the question, let her ask it.
Okay.
The zoning, zoning is provided in the.
Why don't you use the other one that,
The zoning is provided in the Sherman Tract redevelopment plan.
Okay, and what does it say in there? Because this application is subject to the Sherman redevelopment plan, so what does it say within that plan?
Mr.
regarding
Chairman, if
the
I
zone?
may, the zoning is the Sherman Rehabilitation Area Zone.
And what is that? Is that in the Hillsborough Code?
Yes.
And the Sherman redevelopment plan is in the Hillsborough Code. When was that provided?
No, that's not in the code. The Sherman Plan redevelopment zone is an ordinance that was adopted. It may or may not be currently in the code book, but it is an ordinance to be placed in the code book, but it has recently been adopted within the last few months.
So it's not part of the code yet?
It is part of the code, it's just not included in the book itself as created by the developer of the book.
So
It's an
originally, the zone of Block 86, Lot 21, as is shown in the Sherman redevelopment plan, states that it is I-1 light industrial. Residential residential properties are not a permitted use in the I-1 light light industrial zone. So then you would have to have a zone change ordinance, no?
Which we did when we changed it by the redevelopment plan.
Where is that zone change ordinance?
It's part of the redevelopment plan, Ms. Janicek. We go round and round in the issue.
Okay.
It's
Zone
still-
change, or a zone change, first of all, zoning is a function of the township. A zone change ordinance must be submitted to the Somerset County Planning Board with a date of filing before it becomes effective. So where is that zone change ordinance, and where is the date of filing with the Somerset County Planning Board?
The application, the ordinance was adopted in accordance with the law. As to whether or not it was filed with the Somerset County Planning Board and the date upon which, I'm not sure anybody here has the answer, and I suspect neither do you.
Obviously, I don't, because I asked this question, and you're not giving me any kind of answer other
Okay,
than,
I'm gonna-
I suspect it was.
Look,
No.
no, I am.
This is not an answer.
No, exactly, you got your answer. There is no information right now on that date, so
There's no
that needs to be...
information on that date.
No one in this room right now has information on the date.
Was that submitted to the Somerset County Planning Board?
And the answer, I believe, was, I am not aware whether it was or it wasn't.
Well, then how can we continue with all of this?
Because the
Because
answer-
that is a priority. Before you do anything else, that zone has to have a permitted use of allowing residential properties.
Are you giving testimony on the law?
I'm asking this.
Well, you sound
This
like
is-
you're making a
Everyone should know this.
statement.
Everyone should know this. I'm not testifying, I'm saying you've got it on the books.
Ms. Janicek, as we've said in the past, and, you keep bringing up the same issue, so I'm going to give you the same answer that you've gotten in the past. As a township, we have changed the zone as part of the redevelopment plan.
Okay.
All of the approvals that would be required in order for this development to move forward will be required before the development can move forward. So if there is an approval by the Somerset County Planning Board, if it's by the DNR Canal Commission, if it's by the NJDEDA, the Environmental Protection Agency, DEP, thank you. Any of those items will be required before this moves forward. But for the purposes of this hearing, we have an ordinance in place, we've approved the redevelopment plan, and this application is being presented with the understanding of what the zone is today that the township has adopted. I don't know if you're not happy with that.
May I have the name of that zone again?
Mr. Maskey?
It's the Sherman Rehabilitation Area.
Sherman Rehabilitation Area, and that is only specific to what properties?
Block 86, Lot 21, and Block 90, Lot 6.01.
They're the only ones. So all the other properties that are around that are zoned, residential properties that are zoned I-1 light industrial will continue to be I-1 light industrial?
That is correct.
Okay, okay. Before this goes on, all I'm getting is verbal statements. I'm expected to provide documentation. I get verbal from the attorney. From the attorney, I get verbal statements. I'm saying that before you can continue with all of this stuff, you need to have all of the approvals from the state.
That's not how it works. No, we don't need to have that. I will tell you what we need to have, and that's not what we need to
Did you
have.
get approval from the commissioner of the Department of Community Affairs
No,
to designate this an area in need of
As I
rehabilitation?
just indicated to you, if there are approvals that are required, they will be received before
have
this
any
becomes
approvals.
effective.
It was.
You don't have any approval. Okay, I'm going to come back for the other public.
You asked,
There's gonna be
the,
continued
no, let me,
public-
can I finish
Go ahead.
on this one? You asked the question 2 weeks ago. You were told the answer relative to whether the commissioner did or did not approve it. The answer was that A, it doesn't necessarily require an affirmative approval of the commissioner of the Department of Community Affairs. And secondly, my understanding is it was submitted and approved back in July of last year. As to making you submit anything, you don't have to submit anything, Ms. Janusik. I told you 2 weeks ago that if you want the board to consider a document for consideration, such as the CME report, you're going to have to give it to the board. If you don't want to give the CME report or anything else to the board, you don't have to. But if you want the board to consider a document, you're going to have to provide it to the board. It's very simple.
Could you back up a little bit what you said? You said that the approval was given for the area in need of rehabilitation last year?
It was submitted to the Department of Community Affairs last year, and my
It was submitted?
understanding.
Is there a record showing that it was submitted?
You can Oprah that request. This is an action
did
that was
Oprah it.
taken
I
by the
didn't-
Township
I
Committee
Oprah'd it. I
a
didn't
year
get a
ago
response.
this month. This was adopted and designated in July of 2018. The redevelopment plan and the designation were both done in accordance with local redevelopment and housing law. The local redevelopment and housing law states that an investigation report, if it is in an area that the state has determined to be an area suitable for growth and development, upon submission to DCA, it is automatically approved.
So it's automatic? So you would have a record showing that it was submitted, but you won't have a record showing that there was any kind of a reply? Yes?
I'll defer to council.
You would have a record showing that that was submitted to the commissioner of the Department of Community Affairs, but you would not have a reply from them?
You're not required to receive a reply.
I'm saying there would be a record of submission to the
My understanding
commissioner.
is there is such a record.
There is a record. There is a record.
I believe there is, and I believe you've also Oprah'd the clerk over it.
So you're not sure, you're saying, "I believe," but you don't know for sure?
I don't have
Okay.
each and every
So this property
submission by the
is
court.
designated as an area in need of rehabilitation, yes?
Yeah.
Okay. There's going to be more after this witness. There's an opportunity to speak, to ask more questions.
There'll be at least 3 more professionals we'll make available.
Oh, there's more professionals. All right, today.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess so.
Okay. Any other questions of this witness? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. And, you have something? Okay. right, I'm going to make available the engineer, I believe, is here this evening. So if... Okay. So if there's any questions of the engineer of his testimony from last time, or any general engineering questions, please come to the mic. Anyone on this side of the room? Oh, we have a taker.
Joseph P. Maloney, 27 Stonewick Drive, Hillsborough, New Jersey. Okay. Could you reaffirm the storm basin in terms of its depth? I believe you stated that it would just have a sand bottom. There's no wear or additional what's the word I want? Relief from that basin, should that basin overfill?
So I'll answer your first question regarding depth. The basin's designed so that during the 100-year storm event, it would be 3.5 feet deep. That water will infiltrate through the sand bottom into the groundwater. The basin drains within 72 hours, which is a requirement from the New Jersey Best Management Practices, as well as the Department of Environmental Protection. Within this basin is an outlet structure, which has small, we'll call it an orifice, which regulates how much water is let out of the basin during various stages. This water is discharged through this outlet structure, through a pipe, towards Royce's Brook. And in the event that infiltration doesn't work and the outlet structure is clogged, there's an emergency spillway in the basin as well, which flows overland, again, towards Royce's Brook.
Excellent. Going to switch gears on you. I believe you stated at the last meeting that there would be $200,000 going to the tree mitigation fund.
Correct.
Okay. Just wanted you to reaffirm that. And, okay, I don't know if this falls within your purview or Mr. Euro's purview or whose purview, but I'll ask it anyway. There's a pumping station at the end of Harrison Street, which is in the southwest corner of the adjacent property, since we bifurcated the Sherman tract. Will there be coordination between your storm basin and that pumping station in the event that there is heavy rains that we just experienced?
I'm not sure what coordination there.
I'm concerned about the potential for flooding within the floodplain.
Sure.
Excuse me, the mic's out again.
Okay.
Gas going to hold.
The pump station you're referring to, again, is a sanitary sewer pump station. The town has separate drainage and storm infrastructure. So the stormwater runoff from the proposed development doesn't have an impact on the sanitary flow getting into that pump station. The effects that general flooding would have from Royce's Brook on that property, I cannot testify to. I'm not sure that pump station's location in reference to flood zones, but the proposed development, the stormwater basin, would not create an adverse effect beyond what is currently present.
Very good. Just two more.
Sure.
There was no mention of charging stations or bike racks, particularly at the rec center. I don't know if that falls within your purview. However, you did testify to that.
Sure. There's no plan for any charging stations at this point. Bike racks will be scattered throughout the development. We have I'm not sure about the number of them, but they are spaced throughout in proximity to the residential units as well as bike racks in front of the community building.
And my last one, there's a bunch of paper streets that existed probably since turn of last century that run throughout this development. And the only streets that were mentioned in any testimony was Concord, of course, Estelle, and Roosevelt. Are there, I guess that would be with the next phase, but just the only streets that would be included here would be on the drawing, correct?
Correct. There are quite a few paper streets within vicinity of this site. The only paper street right-of-ways that are being proposed at this time are Concord Street and Estelle Street.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to come up and question the engineer? Okay, thank you, sir. I guess. Traffic engineer?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Actually, I have a question about the traffic engineer. He hasn't been produced to testify. He has no testimony on the record, so I'm not sure what he's going to be questioned as to when the applicant is determined not to submit him as a party to this action. So,
I would submit we qualify him. Again, can you give the benefit of your educational?
Wait, first, being sworn in, sorry.
You swear to testimony you give tonight is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Next to Mike, can you state spell your name for me?
David Shropshire, S-H-R-O-P, S-H-I-R-E.
give us your qualifications, Mr. Shropshire.
I'm a professional engineer and a professional planner in the state of New Jersey. I graduated from Virginia Tech also with a Bachelor in Science in Civil Engineering, and graduated from the University of Arizona with a Master of Science in Civil Engineering. I testified before about 200 municipalities throughout the state of New Jersey, including this municipality several years ago. We specialize in the areas of traffic engineering, transportation planning, and provide a report for this particular project.
Okay, is there any objections to his credentials? Okay. We accept them, and now I'll open up to the public if there's any traffic engineering related questions.
Susan Gulliford, Hunt Club Road. Could you briefly go over where the traffic is going to exit, what streets it's going to go out and come out on? Thank you.
The plan, as you can see in the rendering, is going to have the completion of Concord Street from Champlain into the project. That is a paper street today, not an improved street. So that will be completely improved within the existing township right-of-way into the project. The other improvement is Estelle Street, and you can see that towards the center right of the concept. And Estelle Street will be developed, built between Roosevelt Avenue and into the project. So there is not an extension of Estelle Street beyond Roosevelt Avenue. Estelle Street will connect to Roosevelt and provide access to the east, to and from the east, into the project.
Okay, and so all the traffic from this proposed project will come out onto Champlain Road? Both exits, so to speak?
Correct. Well, technically, it'll come out to both Champlain and to Roosevelt.
Okay. I'm just not really familiar with that area. What's across from that on Champlain? That's exiting at what? Is there a company there, or?
I believe there's a auto yard there, I believe.
Okay, that's the one that was, in the past, had problems with tractor trailers parking on Champlain. Okay, thank you.
Lonnie Glinka, 2011 Roosevelt Avenue. So I have a question. So you're saying it's going to go from Estelle and Roosevelt, so these are going to tee off sort of, and so to be able to exit and enter from those two roads?
From Roosevelt, correct, into Estelle.
Okay, so that's 88 units, so double that, 170-something vehicles are going to be coming in and out of these two entrances?
No, the two entrances that you're talking about are Concord out to Camp Plain and then Estelle to Roosevelt. So traffic will disperse between those two.
Between two?
Correct.
So basically, between those two, we're going to have 160, 170 vehicles coming in and out of there. Is there going to be a traffic light or anything there to?
As was stated in the board engineer's review of our report, there's not a substantial amount of traffic that's being generated from this during the peak hours, which would be one of the ways to determine whether or not a traffic signal would be warranted. It doesn't come anywhere close to warranting a traffic signal.
I could disagree with that strongly, knowing that Klein's Construction is out there. Those tractor trailers back that road up constantly. So I think that's going to be a major issue, having 280-something cars coming out of those. I live on Roosevelt Avenue. That's a gravel road. I don't even know if that's possible to be improved on. And now this Estelle Road here is a narrow road as well. To funnel all this massive amount of vehicles out to Klein's. Roosevelt, like I said, is a gravel road. Where I live right there, I can't see, all right, let's say half, 80 cars coming out of there a day. And then in Klein's right there, no traffic signals. Even if there was traffic signals, that's a major issue. That Klein's creates massive amounts of traffic. I've seen that bottleneck from 18th Avenue up past Alfredo's Deli because of trucks that come in and out of there. So that's all. I think it's a major issue.
Maria Janusik, 720 East Freck Avenue, owner Block 86, Lot 3, 2155 Camp Plain Road. My property is across the street from a lot that is utilized by Klein Recycling. And as was mentioned, the traffic there is horrendous. You've got massive industrial trucks coming in and out. You've got tractor trailers coming in and out. You've got car wreck vehicles trucks bringing wrecks into that property, as well as an assortment of other vehicles that bring in all kinds of metals and stuff. That place is super busy. Then a little down the road, you've got Copart of Connecticut, Inc. that has truck carriers that carry 10 cars, whatever. And so you've got massive traffic over there. Did you do a study on Camp Plain Road as to how much traffic there is each day?
Not each day. We did it during the peak periods, which is the standard that would be accepted not only by this town, but by the county, the state, and every municipality that I've worked in.
And what is the peak period?
The peak period is identified, actually, I'll give you the peak periods, and then I'll give you the peak hours within those peak periods. The peak periods were 9 a.m. or 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. During the morning, and then in the afternoon, 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. Within those peak periods. The peak hour was 7:30 to 8:30 in the morning, and that was actually the peak hour of traffic. The morning was heavier than the afternoon. And then along Camp Plain, the p.m. peak hour, the afternoon peak hour was between 3:45 and 4:45 p.m.
That was Camp Plain. What was the prior one that you were talking about?
Camp Plain.
Both, that's all Camp Plain. What other roads did you monitor for your traffic study?
We did a count at Roosevelt Avenue and 13th Street and Wayland Street.
So that's in Manville.
Well, it was the first controlled intersection along Roosevelt, so we did an analysis of that location.
So that's in Manville.
Yes.
So what streets in Hillsborough besides Camp Plain Road did you monitor?
Just Camp Plain.
So your traffic study was basically more on the streets in Manville, because Roosevelt is a short street in Hillsborough, and then it runs from there into Manville.
No, our study was primarily in Hillsborough, And we also looked at the secondary access that goes out Roosevelt,
Where you're saying primarily in Hillsborough, so where you're talking about?
Camp Plain.
Just Camp Plain. From what stretch, from where to where?
Well, we looked at the intersection of Camp Plain and Old Camp Plain and Sunny Mead, because that's, again, one of the first controlled intersections to do an intersection count. So that's where we did our counts and did our assessment.
So do you have records, do you have numbers of how much traffic there was? How many trucks, vehicles, et cetera? You have records of that?
Yes, we do.
Can you provide that?
It's been provided and submitted with
But
part of the
you
application.
won't provide it now, you've just given
No.
a written report?
It was submitted to the, as
Okay,
part of the
but-
application.
But you can't say now what amount of traffic, trucks and et cetera that there were?
I can certainly give you how much traffic there was.
Okay.
And during the critical morning peak hour along Camp Plain, there was a total at that intersection that I noted of 813 vehicles,
813 vehicles in one day?
1 hour.
In 1 hour?
Correct.
And that's for those businesses? And now you
No,
want to...
that's everybody at
Everybody,
that
okay,
intersection
everybody.
during that 7:30 to 8:30 peak hour.
7:30, 8:30, okay. And that doesn't include what's going to be going on once this comes along?
No, but part of our study did project and did that analysis. Again, was reviewed by the board engineer, who also concurs that it's not a significant impact based on the distribution of traffic.
It's not a significant impact. Who said that?
Correct. Our report said that, and it was confirmed by the board engineer.
Confirmed by Mr. Euro?
Correct.
Okay, and you based your agreement on the traffic study by Mr., I'm sorry?
Shropshire.
Shropshire.
Yes, we reviewed the data that was provided in accordance with the state standards, IT standards for traffic, and we concurred with his findings, and we offered our findings and our comments in our letter dated revised July 8th, 2019.
And your letter is to whom?
It's to the board.
To the board?
Yes.
And this is all available as a record, written record?
Yep.
Thank you.
Just want to make sure no one else has a question first.
Again, my name's Lonnie Glinka, 2011 Roosevelt Avenue. I don't agree with the way you're counting the cars. That's an inaccurate way to measure this at this specific site, this location, is my opinion, based on the type of vehicles that are coming in and out of this facility. These are tractor trailers. As Maria spoke about the Copar, these aren't motorcycles. These aren't cars. These are tractor trailers. Right now, it jams up. This is a danger. It really is. There's going to be serious accidents there when people are coming in and out of there. Like I said, there's large vehicles, so I just wanted to bring that up. Thank you.
Anyone else would like to question the traffic engineer? Thank you. Okay. I know we still have the architect in-house. You don't have to come up. I'm just going to see if anyone wants to question the architect.
Walter Janusik, 2155 Camp Plain Road, Hillsborough. The biggest traffic that we have on Camp Plain Road is in front of clients, in front of my house, especially on a Saturday. On a Saturday, when everybody brings the junk over there, they got tractor trailers, they got people standing alongside of the street. That street should be widened on that part because people can't get by. People trying to get in, they are loaded, and that is the big, on a Saturday especially, from 8 to 12. Thank you.
Veronica Yendris, 406 Washington Avenue, Manville, New Jersey. I would like to comment on that, the traffic as well. When you're on Camp Plain Road, that business Klein has, it can get very jammed up, and the cars and the trucks are literally parked early in the morning. I guess they're waiting for the place to open. and they park along there, and sometimes their vehicles are idling when it's wintertime. So there's a lot of traffic parked on the sides of the road, and they're on both sides sometimes, just waiting for that place to open. So maybe if you do something to prevent that from happening, because the quality of life of people living there has become horrible. It's really a horrible situation. And I think you need to take that into consideration. I know the government is requiring this building, but what about the people that live there now? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to comment or question any of the witnesses we have this evening? Okay. Thank you. Any additional comments from the dais, last moments? I know the applicant has rested, so, Counselor?
The public
options?
wants to make their last comments on the application. The time is now.
Okay. So, last comments on the application?
Joseph Maloney, 27 Stonewick Drive, Hillsborough, New Jersey. Specifically to Mr. Maskey, the initial Sherman tract in your report from a year ago is 65-plus acres. It has now been bifurcated into 231.2 acres. There's a 3.05 piece of acreage, northeast appendage. What's happening with those 3 acres?
Yeah, that is not part of this application, but it is part of the redevelopment plan.
Yes.
The redevelopment plan basically says if it should be redeveloped at some point, it would be the same as the surrounding R residential zone. It would
Okay.
not be part of this development.
Okay, so Hillsborough Township remains the owner of those 3 acres?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Well, it depends on what the question, but come on, we'll see if we've got an answer.
Judy Haas, 2 Titus Court in Hillsborough. I have several questions in regard to the CIS statements regarding the impacts on the school system. And I would like to indicate that we recently had a demographer study done in November 2018 in regard to the current status of our schools without any new development. And that study indicated that the enrollment in Hillsborough schools increased by 3.25% from 2013 to 2018-19 school year. And that was an increase of 242 students district-wide. The 5-year projection with no new development is actually 5.7%, or 445 students district-wide. These numbers are based only on enrollment history, and again, do not include any potential impact from this development or any of the other 4 or 5 that are in the hopper right now. This has to be taken into consideration in relation to the fact that our schools are already at or above capacity. This was, part of the issues that we had in regard to having a referendum. And basically it showed that all of the schools that we have right now are fully utilized with very little available classroom space. The high school is especially short of space, and in the lower grades, enrollment increases will only cause us to increase class sizes to an extent that would really be detrimental to children. We estimated that, well, our demographer estimated that...
Mrs. Haas, I
yes.
don't mean to interrupt. Are you speaking on behalf of the board?
In this portion, yes, I am the
Have you been-
president of the Board of Education.
Have you been authorized to speak on behalf of the board for purposes of the record?
Yes, but I have some questions as an individual as well. So I am basically reading from a demographer's
Then we're going to need to swear you in.
Okay,
Can I intrude the whole truth, nothing but
sure.
the truth? You can spell your name.
Judy Haas, Judyhaas.
Mrs. Hosk, for the record, you are the president of the Board of Education for the
Correct.
Township of Hillsborough. Can you indicate to the board what document you are reading from, and do you intend to provide a copy to the board for consideration?
I can. It's a statement from our demographer,
Can you indicate the
Ross
individual?
Haber and Associates.
Spell it, please, for the record.
Ross, R-O-S-S, H-A-B-E-R.
Thank you.
Okay, so basically the other thing that Dr. Haber indicated, that one of the goals of the district, and one that might be mandated by the state, would be a full-day kindergarten. And that it would also have another impact on our schools. And his conclusion, in his opinion, was that any new non-age restricted housing developments would place an undue hardship on and possibly be detrimental to the Hillsborough schools. So that is the Ross Haber statement. Now I would like to speak as a resident who just happens to be the Board of Education president.
You know, just for the record, I want to make sure that was fine.
Okay.
I want to make sure for the record.
Has Mr. Haber spoken down in Trenton to ask the legislators to deal with this affordable housing matter? Because frankly, his comments I understand, but, until there's relief from affordable housing,
It's a question
it is what it
of
is.
rule. I don't know the answer to that question, in fairness.
And if I could make a statement, because I don't believe you were here for our planner's testimony at last hearing, one of the benefits in working with the town is in this development, it's 100% COA. So if it was a typical, most towns, for example, Raritan, Bridgewater are doing 15%, maybe 20%. My experience with this town is they're requiring in the area of 25% set aside, which again, ultimately reduces the impact of school-age children.
Absolutely.
And especially in this development, could have been a 350 unit development to have the same COA fulfillment requirements pursuant to the Mount Laurel litigation.
Right.
I just wanted to make that record because our planner kind of explained it better than I could say it.
Right.
But we're trying to minimize
Yeah.
school-age children
No, I'm fully aware
impact.
of that, and I did watch your last hearing on television. And, I am speaking about a townwide problem. I don't know if that's appropriate in relation to this particular hearing, but I really think it's the context that we all have to talk about. We're having capacity issues. I would just like to say, I did review the comments in the community impact statement, and I would just like to ask for more time for the board to respond to these letters. The letter that came in relation to this was on May 29th. It missed our board meeting. We're on a 2-week schedule, and that was like right after Memorial Day. So is there more than 14 days that the board could have to respond to the community impact statements? Because the letter says it has to be responded to in 14 days.
That was a May 29th letter?
Yeah.
Okay. Which has now been 2 months since. Does the board have any indication when they were prepared to provide such a document?
Well, no. I mean, honestly, we did not have the letter in the office. So, we tried to deal with that today, but anyway. So if there's some way that we could have more time to respond in the future.
I'm just trying to make sure I understand what you're, I'm not sure I follow your question, sorry.
I'm just asking for more than the 14 days to respond.
But from when, sorry? From which point?
From the day that we got this letter from the developer that's part of the packet.
And it was received when?
I don't know that it was received, but that was, the bottom line is, it's dated May 29th, and it says, please respond within 14 days. I mean, we could talk about that offline, but, given the board's schedule, under any circumstance, it would be difficult to respond in 14 days. So that's question number one.
If the board would like to provide a document, they may.
What's that?
If the board would like to provide a response to that, they may.
Okay. Additional questions. The estimate of school children of 22 seems short when 77 units are 2 or 3 bedrooms. Our demographer was like estimating like a 0.6 per unit or thereabouts for affordable housing units of multiple bedrooms. Is that an absolute conclusion?
I'm only the attorney, ma'am, so I
Oh,
can't
sorry.
answer that question.
Okay.
I wish I knew the information for you.
All right.
I don't know that.
Okay. And as I said before, the increase in the student population has to take into account the fact that we have, above capacity now and potentially 5 other developments being considered. There was an indication of $16,000 cost per pupil. That is a budgetary cost per pupil, and it's used to compare cost per pupil throughout the state, including in districts that don't have as many services as we do, including transportation. So I'd just like to make that point, that that's a low number. The $16,000 times 22 would be $352,000. We clearly welcome that in our situation right now. And honestly, if 4 or 5 of those children were special needs children, it could be a lot more expensive. And those are the ratios that we've been getting in the last couple of developments that have come in. There was also a statement in the CIS that says we have 9,000 students in the district. We don't. We have 7,500. And there was a statement that is in the CIS and was also stated by you at the end of the last planning board meeting in regard to discussing pilot funding at the township committee level on August 13th. Is that the financial statement that is now attached to the ordinance for the public hearing on August 13th?
Yes.
That doesn't say anything about sharing with schools.
Unfortunately, that's what the law says.
Well, correct, but it is stated in here that there would be some proportional sharing with the schools.
That may be what the financial statement says, but the purposes of the pilot is set forth in the law, as you are well aware in multiple fashions, is the sharing upon which we are allowed to, or at least we receive. If the township down the road, and I think we've been down this road before on other pilot agreements, if the township and the board can come to some kind of resolution relative to same, I'm assuming that may or may not occur. But as per the law, as you know, that's the distribution.
I understand that, but I'm suggesting, since it was brought up, I mean, if you want to have a meeting on that, that would be fine. I would welcome that, certainly. So it was stated, so I'm asking. Okay?
And I'm assuming that Ms. Haas, as you know, I'm also the township's affordable housing attorney.
My condolences.
Thank you. That if the board would like to go on record relative to the item in question, I'm not so sure the township would be particularly unhappy to receive a supporting document in an attempt to try to reduce the number of units.
I'm not clear on that.
You commented in your testimony the impact of this development and possibly others relative to the school population. If the board would like to support the township's position in an attempt to try to reduce the number of units being developed, which therefore reduces the total number of potential school-age children, I'm sure the township will be happy to receive that support.
Okay, and vice versa.
As we continue to do with every conversation I have with every developer.
Okay, but, given that there are impacts on the schools, just like there are for police and fire, et cetera, it would be helpful to have additional money to pay for additional students.
And unfortunately, for the record, as you are well aware, and especially when it comes to affordable housing, those impacts really at the moment don't concern the courts, nor the Fair Share Housing Center, nor the legislature. And when and if one or all of them would like to consider that as an issue, we'd be happy to be part of it. But unfortunately, telling them all that this is an impact not only on municipal services, but on the Board of Ed and the services they provide, we get the thank you and when are you building our affordable housing?
Well, I understand that, and I don't really understand why. I think it's a
No-
no-brainer that, schools have significant impacts from any kind of development. This isn't an affordable housing issue.
No,
this
but
is a
you're
de-
here
development issue.
you're here at the moment on this issue, so.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I understand that. And, other states, when they bring in developments that create several hundred students, require them to build a school. And,
Again, on the purpose of the legislature.
I'd be happy to advocate anywhere I could for that law to change, but, we can do whatever we can do here.
So maybe the
That
next,
would be helpful.
maybe the next Board of Ed meeting, you might stand up and give the same speech on the record to those people in Trenton.
We have, actually.
Okay.
We've sent
Well, I'm
a
just saying,
resolution
we've been
to
saying it
you.
we've been saying it for years, and we had a meeting, a town hall meeting to explain to the residents, so we understand where it come from, Ms. Haas.
I hope so.
And unfortunately, there's a mandate and a number we need to meet. And they don't care how many kids come, they don't care what the impact is on schools, the police or whatever, they don't care.
Well, that's something we should all be working
And
together
everyone
on.
here in the public, that is here because they're concerned, maybe next time you pick up the phone and write a letter or to your congressman or to your senator or whatever, because now it's affecting your backyard. That's all I can say.
It's always affected my backyard.
It's affected all of our backyards.
But this is something we should be all working on.
We
It's
are
fine.
doing our best.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Judy.
Thank you.
Veronica Yendris, 406 Washington Avenue, Manville. I don't know if there was any consideration given, and I'm only saying this out of what I've seen. Manville has its share of what I would call low-income eligible folks. And some of these people don't have cars, and they go shopping at the local Walmart, and where this is situated, they'll probably be going to Weiss, both places. Now, in Manville, we have sidewalks, and they take the shopping cart from Walmart, bring it to the place where they live, and leave it at the place where they live. So, this is just a concern about public safety and going around that little tiny curve that's around that terrible curve on,
Sunny Mead.
yeah, it's the same, Sunny
Mead.
Weston Road.
Sunny Mead.
That one. People are going to be going shopping and having shopping carts and no sidewalk. So it's something to take into consideration. Or is there going to be some sort of public transportation for these folks, those that don't have cars? Because I can tell you right now from experience, having neighbors that had no cars, they borrow cars, they pick up friends and what have you, and that's going to be an issue. I just want to bring that out publicly because I see that as a major concern, people getting hurt, because people don't exactly drive slow.
Yeah, and I think the county has a transportation program, Scoot. So I would suggest calling the county, for stops through their Scoot program.
Maria Janusik, 720 East Freck Avenue, Manville, New Jersey, owner of Block 86, Lot 21, 2155 Camplain Road. I would like to ask if all of these board members have heard prior applications that involve freshwater wetlands? Have there been applications for properties that involve freshwater wetlands previously before these board members?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure there have been.
Yes. Yeah.
Nearly all applications.
Excuse me?
Nearly all applications.
Nearly all applications have had wetlands?
I mean, it's very
Some
common,
sort of
yes.
wetlands in
Okay,
the
so it's
property.
very common.
Just,
Okay.
but I want to be clear, because we answered this question last time too, so just there is a difference between having a property that has a portion of wetlands on it and building on the wetlands. No one is proposing building on the wetlands. The property, though, has wetlands that are segregated on the property. So I just want to be sure that you're clear on that, because we answered that last time, and so.
Okay, so I just want to find out also if the board members have knowledge regarding the requirements of the Freshwater Wetlands Protection Act, because violation of the Freshwater Wetlands Protection Act cannot be excused because planning board members were not aware of the law, because I believe ignorance of the law is not an excuse. Now my question is, who is the applicant for this, for application 19 PB 11-MSP? Because on the application itself, the Hillsborough Township Development Application, it states RPM Development Group LLC, but then I have a copy. I had submitted a request for government records through the Open Public Records Act, and I have a copy of a Hillsborough Township resolution. It says resolution authorizing the execution of a redeveloper agreement with Concord Street Urban Renewal Associates, LP, to aid the Township of Hillsborough in meeting its affordable housing obligations. So here it states that there's an agreement with a redeveloper called Concord Street Urban Renewal Associates, LP, and then the application itself states that it is RPM Development Group, LLC, and then the legal notice flyer that I received as a property owner on the certified list states that it's RPM Development, LLC, and then in parentheses, it says RPM Development Group. So what is the legal, who is?
Ms. Janusik, we answered this question at the last hearing. We answered this question at the last hearing.
No.
Ms. Kalinich did. She said that each of the projects have a separate LLC that's a subsidiary under the RPM umbrella.
So the application, so is there an application also by Concord? Is there a separate application by Concord Street Urban Renewal Associates, LP?
It's just an LLC. It's an entity. It's a subsidiary entity of the parent corporation.
Then why are there separate resolutions for Concord Street and then there's different resolutions for RPM?
Because that's the name of the LLC, of the entity that's being designated.
So why isn't that information provided on the application?
It is.
That there is, excuse me?
It is provided on the application.
There's no information that Concord Street, what is it? Concord Street Urban Renewal Associates, LP, has any kind of connection with RPM Development Group, LLC. There is nothing on the application. I have a copy over here if you want to.
Oh, no, I don't need a copy.
Okay.
Thank you for your question.
So now, also, the application for Block 86, Lot 21, application named Sherman Tract Phase 1, states that the existing use is vacant and wooded. There's nothing showing that there are any kind of structures that are residential, commercial, industrial. And this is designated as an area in need of rehabilitation. Also, for specific site concerns, and it's in parentheses, be specific, historic, environmental, etc.
Ms.
There's nothing
Janusik.
stating that there are wetlands on this property.
Ms. Janusik,
So-
first of all, the notice does not have to indicate that there are wetlands on the property.
I am talking about the application.
The application
I'm
does
talking
not...
about the application,
The
and this
application
does not show anything
does
showing
not
that there...
necessarily have-
I didn't finish, and you're starting to talk. Let me finish, please.
Please.
You say the same thing to me, okay? It does not state here that there are wetlands on this property, freshwater, regulated freshwater wetlands. Why isn't that on there?
Not
Also-
required.
Also,
It's part of the checklist requirements. It's part of the submission package.
this is part of the application. It's a
Right,
question
so
on
it's
the
not just
application.
it's not just one page,
So when
ma'am.
you choose to not answer something, you can just say, it's not required.
We just did answer. It's part of the application.
You say it's not required to...
A wetland study was submitted as part of this application.
It doesn't state that on this application.
It's part of the
So it's like
checklist
you
items.
only fill in what you choose to fill in. Now also.
Mr. Chairman, if I may
now
interrupt,
also-
Ms. Janicek, as you well know, the application is more than one page. You have been into our office and you have reviewed the entire application package.
Okay.
The first 2 pages are
This is
just
the
to get name and
applica-
address
this is
straight.
The application,
The
and then.
No, that is
then
not.
attached-
That is one sheet of a very thick application
Then may I
package.
please, because I submitted a request for government records through the Open Public Records Act. If this is all that was given to me, then.
No, it's not. You've
then-
been
then
in
my
our,
request-
you have
then my
seen,
request
you have seen the
was
entire
not,
package.
for documents was not honored. Now, with this application is a second page that says narrative in support of application, RPM Development LLC, again in parentheses, RPM Development Group, Block 86, Lot 21. On July 10, 2018, the Hillsborough Township Committee adopted a resolution determining that Lot 21 in Block 86, covering 62.25 acres, hereinafter the subject property, is included in an area in need of rehabilitation. So, okay, this is a little addition here. On March 26, 2019, the Hillsborough Township Committee adopted what is known as the Sherman Redevelopment Plan, which included the subject property. On March 26, 2019, the Township Committee designated RPM Development Group as redeveloper of the subject property, hereinafter RPM. So we've got a lot of stuff going on over here with different names, different things. Here it's saying that.
Okay, ma'am, you're using your time
Hillsborough
up.
Township Committee.
Can you please get to the point of your question?
Yeah, so my question is, who actually is the legal applicant for Block 86, Lot 21? Because,
Well,
may I continue since you're saying?
No, you wanted an answer.
All right,
Go ahead.
ask the
Here's the
question.
answer. The
Go ahead.
answer is RPM Development Group is a designated redeveloper for the property in question, of which they have assigned a subsidiary of RPM Development Group, Concord Street Urban Partners LP, to provide the application. The applicant is still ultimately RPM Development Group.
Okay, you are telling me this. Where is it in the records? Because I can
listed
tell you
as the
plenty of
applicant.
things
It's
too.
listed as the applicant.
Who is?
RPM.
RPM.
That's
So-
the company.
So where is the information of this subsidiary or whatever you're talking about, Concord Street Urban Renewal? Where is that documented that they are connected and this is what is going on?
There's been
Because
testimony to that effect. Yes, there was testimony 2 weeks ago to that effect, and I believe Mr. O'Brien.
there may be testimony. Where is written documentation in
Mr.
this file?
O'Brien addressed that 2 weeks ago, ma'am.
No, you did not. No, you did not. You did not say that there is written documentation. Continuing with this additional page for the application, it says RPM is now applying to the Hillsborough Township Planning Board for preliminary and final major subdivision approval to subdivide the subject property into 2 lots of approximately 31.3 acres each. Proposed lot 21.02 will not be developed at the present time, and RPM is seeking preliminary and final major site approval to develop proposed lot 21.01. So the first procedure was to subdivide Block 86, Lot 21. Was approval given for that, to subdivide that lot into the proposed lot 21.01 and 21.02? Was that approval given by this board?
This board, as part of its consideration, when it ultimately comes to that, will be the subdivision of the lot and the approval of the application. If the
Excuse
lot,
me?
if the board will consider, ultimately, a resolution to, A, agree to adopt, to subdivide the property, and B, to approve the application for part of the subdivided property.
Ms. Johnson, let me say it a little simpler. As part of the application, we'll also approve the subdivision.
You don't need to simplify.
Well, you seem to ask questions that we answered 5 times.
I am hearing what Attorney Bernstein is saying, but the initial application is for approval to subdivide the lot.
No,
This
the
lot-
initial-
This
no.
lot has, yes.
As
This
part-
lot has.
as
application is to
part
do
of the
both.
application. That's what I'm, as part of the
There is a
application.
resolution by the governing body to give authorization to RPM to submit a application to subdivide the property.
Which they are
There's a
doing it- which
resolution.
they are doing-
Now, this property has wetlands. So now when
Doesn't
you,
matter.
when you separate this, you've got two separate lots. You don't know what wetlands are on one.
Yes, we
what
do.
wetlands are on the other. And if you have two separate properties, don't you have to now submit a letter of interpretation for one lot and for another lot? This is all, you know, you're doing mumbo jumbo,
No,
flim flam
no,
stuff
no,
over
no,
here.
no, Miss- no, Miss-
And
No, no.
this is, and this
Mrs.
is. and
Janasek,
this-
what you want the record to review is that it is mumbo jumbo. The property is being, application is being for a subdivision into two lots. The wetlands,
And before you-
could I
Wait,
finish?
let the
You're
attorney
right. Go,
finish.
Go.
The wetlands on the current property are not changing by the subdivision of the two lots. They will remain exactly where they are on the lots. To the extent that there is requirements with DEP approval for this lot and block, as a condition of a potential approval will be to get DEP approval. When and if the second subdivided lot, if the board grants the subdivision, comes in for an application to develop that lot and deal with the wetlands on that part of the property, they will have to address the same issues on their part of the property when they come before the board. The wetlands are not changing, the requirements are not changing, the situation has not changed by a subdivision.
Block 86, Lot 21 has regulated freshwater wetlands.
I think we've
and it has a
established that fact
conservation
already. Please
easement.
get to the question.
Could you please show a diagram of Block 86, Lot 21?
there, it's right there.
And how it, a
Right
big
there.
one, something that you can see that shows.
I don't think it could
that
get much
shows-
bigger.
No,
That's right.
that shows.
50 inches.
Which one is proposed Lot 21.01, and which one is proposed Lot 21.02?
The one to your right, as you look at the screen, with the proposed
And where are the
development.
wetlands?
Mrs. Janicek,
Where are the wetlands?
Mrs.
I'm
Janicek,
asking-
Mrs.
no,
Janicek,
no,
no.
Let him finish.
Because I'm seeing this stuff. I don't see where the
Mrs.
wetlands are.
Janicek. No, up there.
No, this
For
is
the
fine.
for the purposes of
This
the,
is good.
it's the same document. You want to go over and look at the same document. The property to the right, where the proposed development is lot 21.01, block 86, designating within it the various constraints on the property at the, what I would say, the southern end for those of us non-engineers. To the left, in the undeveloped, still wooded portion, you will see lot 21.02, block 86, which is approximately 31.3 acres up on the map. That is not developed, there is no application for development, and when and if there is an application for development, anyone coming in is going to have to deal with the various constraints set forth up on the map.
What are all
You need to come back to the mic. I can't hear you on tape.
Mrs.
He just
Janicek,
said-
the answer to that question is you were here for the testimony of the engineer to...
What are all those lines? Where are the wetlands?
I'm going to object to this line of questioning.
Where are the
This was already asked and answered,
Yes, it was,
Why are you
several times.
Why are you objecting?
because I have the right to object.
Where are the wetlands?
They've been,
This was already, we already provided substantial
Yes, we did.
You
testimony.
tell me many
The-
times you've answered things.
the
Where are the
engineer-
wetlands? Where are the wetlands? Where are the wetlands?
You wanna bring your-
Why is that a difficult thing to answer? Where are the wetlands?
They're right on that map. See
Where?
it? Right up there.
Right adjoining there, right?
We
Right
provided
there.
substantial
And now
testimony
you've
on
The
got-
southern end of the
where is
property.
Where is the conservation easement for the DNR canal?
If
all
you would
there.
look, there's a key, and you can see all the
In
different
the lower left-hand
delineations.
corner, there's a legend that clearly indicates what all those nice little colored lines
So there
all
are
represent.
wetlands up above there, and there are wetlands all down here. And so this building is these buildings are adjoining or adjacent to the wetlands. What are the provisions of the Freshwater Wetlands Protection Act regarding that?
Ms. Janusik asked and answered, everything has to pass through the DEP before anything can be approved. You've
That'll
asked this
be-
question now 4 times at least tonight, and the last 2 weeks ago, at least 3 or 4 times. So I don't know if you actually want to hear the answer, or there's an answer in your mind that you want to hear. Everything here is delineated as per the DEP, as per what was required by our engineer and by the state of New Jersey and the governing officials. I don't know what your background is or education, and I'm not pretending to say that you're an engineer or not, but I think that the engineer and the people who are looking at these plans, by their licensing, are able to delineate the lines properly, okay? And you seem to like to read a lot of things. So the first thing we read in tonight's application, and maybe we skipped it because you were all excited about the meeting. Applicant is seeking preliminary and final major subdivision approval, which we just asked a question about. Preliminary major site plan approval, which is what you see up here. Bulk variance and waivers to 1, subdivide property 62.25 acres into 2 lots and develop proposed lot 21.01, phase 1, to construct a multifamily resident development consisting of 13 two-story buildings, clubhouse buildings, and etc. So everything is on the first page here without opening all those documents, exactly what this meeting's about. So if there's anything specific that you're concerned about, because we have a lot of people here that probably want to hear what the rest of this meeting is, please ask your concern. But to continually grandize and about lines that we've gone over at 2 meetings now, and asked and answered to you personally while you were here. So please just state what your concern is. Are you concerned that we are building on wetlands? The answer is no, we are not allowed to build on wetlands. If there's another concern, please state it, and let's yield to someone else on the floor, okay?
Okay. When you started to reply to me, you said that you got approval or a response from the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection?
No,
I said it's required to have.
See, the nice part of your quote testimony, Mrs. Janicek, close quote, is you decide that you hear something, and therefore it is. Mr. Lapani never said we have anything from DEP. The requirements are of this application, like any other application with a wetlands component to it, freshwater or otherwise, is that even if the board were to grant approval for the subdivision, it is still required to meet all the conditions established by the DNR Canal Commission where applicable, the New Jersey State Department of Environmental Protection where applicable, the United States Environmental Protection Agency where applicable, and if any or all of the applicable agencies determine that the proposed application cannot be built within the confines of what it exists and will not grant exceptions to it, the applicant is going to have to come back before this board and seek an amended application. This is not a be-all and end-all situation any more than any other application that comes before this board for affordable housing or not for affordable housing exists regarding any environmental constraints, be they wetlands, be they pipelines, be they almost anything else. So I would indicate from Mr. Lapani's comment, is there anything other than the freshwater wetlands delineation concern you have regarding this application?
Can you give approval of this before you get all of the approvals from?
It's contingent. We
It's
adopt.
conditioned upon all of the board's approvals.
Okay, no, I just want to ask, so you can say you approve this, but then you have to wait for the approvals from all of the agencies?
That's Yes. correct.
And so when do you have another meeting? Or
Nope.
some kind of
Nope.
notification?
Nope.
There's no notification to anyone else that
The
you
o-
got those
the only-
approvals?
The
You
only
just
time
go
there will be
forward?
notification is if the applicant is denied building what they are being allowed to build and have to come back before this board for an amended application. In the absence of that, be it this application or any other application for development in any municipality, if applicable governmental approvals are granted subject to the provisions of the approving resolution, the municipality can then go forward, if the applicant so requests, for construction permits and related items at the appropriate time and not before. If the approvals don't come for another 12, 18, 24, or 36 months, they can't build unless they get those approvals before the township is going to grant its approvals.
I'd also like to ask, who sent the legal notice to the property owners on the certified list?
I did.
Okay. Because you never signed this. Is that?
That's
why
not
is there no
required.
signature? There's no
My name
signature
is at the bottom. No signature is required.
So if I were to mail this to someone else, they could assume that it was from you?
Be fraud.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, I think she's asking is if she took the
There-
notice and
there's-
sent it to
there's-
somebody
there's-
else, she
there-
could claim
there
it's
is
you.
There is no date, there is nothing saying it was sent via certified mail, it is not signed by you, and so basically it's an informational flyer, not a letter.
The
And
municipal
so-
land use law governs public notice and legal
So can you-
notice.
All right, so what is the?
It's a standard of reasonableness, whether a
what is-
reasonable
what is-
person
what
could
is
understand what the
exact-
application is about.
What is the exact law specific to the notice that needs to be sent to property owners?
That you need to identify certain characteristics of the application and generally describe the application, which we've done.
Now, why did you send this when Francis P. Linus was the attorney for this applicant? Part of the records that I had received.
Mr. Linus has
state-
Mr.
state,
Linus
please
has
be advised
withdrawn.
that I represent RPM Development LLC in connection with a proposed development. So
Mr.
Linus,
Linus has withdrawn his application, my understanding, due to a conflict.
what's the conflict?
He represents Manville, and if there were any objectors or the township or the borough of Manville wanted to make a formal objection, he would have a non-waivable conflict of interest due to his representation of that governmental entity. Therefore, he withdrew as counsel.
So Mr. Linus was not aware that he was the borough attorney from Manville when he took on this assignment?
That we can, Mr. O'Brien, don't, Mr. O'Brien doesn't have to answer that, nor does anyone else, because it's not applicable to the matter at hand.
So do you have another
But
question?
there was a conflict of interest. which
Apparently-
caused-
No.
which caused-
There wasn't, there.
He simply withdrew.
He withdrew.
Without-
The
He
application was
simply
presented, he
withdrew.
withdrew.
Yes.
All right,
This
thank
is
you.
now their counsel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Come on up, state your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening, Chairman, board members. Richard Onderko, 921 Lewis Street, Manville. I'm speaking tonight.
Can you spell
Just
your...
hold the microphone in your
can you-
hand.
Excuse
Take
me.
Hold the mic up for
Take
your
the
hand.
mic out of the cradle. And can you also spell your last name, sir, for the record?
Onderko. I'm
Thank you.
speaking this evening as the current mayor of the borough of Manville. My question to the board, in a 55-square-mile township, is this the best location for this type of development?
Board doesn't have to answer.
No, that's not our...
On advice
Okay,
of
let me ask
counsel-
another question
On
then.
advice of counsel, I am advising the board not to answer what is ostensibly not a relevant question.
Were any other locations in Hillsborough Township considered for this development?
Also, same answer.
It's not relevant for this board.
The other concern I have is what the resident brought up about the exit coming out the back to Roosevelt. Is the borough of Manville allowed to let that happen, or do we have any say in that? Because that could significantly add to our traffic coming through that residential neighborhood.
I'm not an attorney and I can't give you legal advice, so I would suggest you go to your municipal attorney for that
Because on
advice.
other developments in Hillsborough, we have gates up that block the traffic coming through.
Mayor, I would suggest that you consult with Mr. Linus.
Yes.
Mr. Linus is, well,
He's your borough attorney.
that's
After
correct.
that,
That's right.
But can he rule on this?
I have no idea. You'll have to ask him.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else? Come on up.
Veronica Yendris, 406 Washington Avenue, Manville, New Jersey. I'm hearing all these things, and I think one of the biggest concerns is the flooding. And I've heard people, concerned about, where's this water going to go? There's a wetland here. Well, last week, 2 weeks ago, at the last meeting, a Hillsborough resident living at the end of Roosevelt Avenue said she applied for a permit to put in a sidewalk from the street to her house. Okay, perhaps the ordinances have changed, I don't know. she was denied the request, and she said the request, and she's not here to explain this. She says that the request was denied because of flooding from the wetlands. So now, she couldn't put in a sidewalk to her front door, but we can build all these parking lots and all these buildings and deny somebody a sidewalk so they don't have to walk in the mud. So I'm just making that comment because what I'm hearing is concerns about flooding, and that is my biggest concern, because I've had my house flooded where you would never think there would be a flood. And it all has to do with the sewers, the drains, from other areas coming in and just filling up and just spreading through Manville. It's a really sad situation. And the housing in Manville, people are just leasing their homes out to low-income people. And the town is going to hell, basically, because of all this extra building and parking lots. Thank you.
There's someone in the back.
Hi, Kelly Harrivan, Harravin, 158 North 8th Avenue, Manville. My question also is similar. Was there any kind of flood impact study done? Because the engineer said that the overflow basin would be piped into the Royce Brook.
Let me just-
The Royce Brook runs right to Manville.
Let me just summarize if you missed our last
I- yeah,
extensive
I-
meeting.
And I don't want to hear like a 100-year flood because.
No,
that
so
doesn't
anytime
apply.
that, as our engineer testified, this project cannot be approved unless it improves both the quantity and the quality of the water outflow in the event of a storm. The stormwater detention basin was designed to handle all of the stormwater for this application, for this project. In addition, they built extensive bioswales within the center lane going out to Concord Street that is above and beyond what's required by NJDEP for stormwater management.
Mr. O'Grodnick, can I ask maybe that the engineer answer that question instead of you?
Sure.
Just,
But he also did state that it was going to be piped into the Royce Brook.
Remind you, still under oath.
Understood. The site as it is right now drains completely from Camplain Road south across this property into the brook. So everything that's on this site now, any rain, any runoff from the development or from Camplain Road drains across the property into the brook.
Right, but gets absorbed by trees that are going to be cut down.
Not necessarily.
But, yes.
The site is designed so the runoff generated by our improvements, the parking lots, the building roofs, the sidewalks, the trees that we're clearing, that runoff gets collected and distributed into the basin. It's an infiltration basin. That water is absorbed and infiltrated into the groundwater. We are cutting off a large supply of the surface runoff that makes its way towards the brook, and we are now infiltrating it into the ground instead.
But like, why wouldn't you pipe it out towards Camplain? Why would you pipe it towards the brook?
Because everything from Camplain drains towards the brook anyway.
But you can't pitch it to go in a different direction?
No, Camplain Road's about 20 feet higher than the brook. It doesn't work.
you would affect the wetlands, and I think we'd upset some people in the back of the room.
The intent of the state rules, and we will have to file an application with the state DEP for this application, they will review the stormwater management, the discharge, the waste runoff is treated on the property to ensure that we are not creating an adverse impact on the adjacent community, on the brook. The intent is
Can't you build a wall?
that there's no impact on.
Well, I don't know. And then my second concern would also be Roosevelt Avenue, because I'm speaking on behalf of the school children in Manville. Manville kids walk. We don't have the luxury of busing. Roosevelt is a direct.
Neither do we.
Neither do we.
Yes.
There's a direct avenue, Roosevelt runs right towards the elementary school. You're going to have kids walking, we can't have another 200 cars on that road. You know, I don't know why you're not piping out towards Sunny Mead, because you don't want it by your elementary school. Well, we don't want it by our elementary school either. And then I would also say, if you're going to use Sunny Mead, or even Sunny Mead is a dangerous intersection to begin with, so to add another 200 cars towards that way, I think you have to put, I mean, right now that four-way stop is dangerous. I never go that way just because people just don't stop. So like I would consider then you would have to put a traffic light there if you go forward with this development. Thank you.
Thank you.
There are going to be sewers as part of this project. My property, since we bought it 40-odd years ago, has a septic system. We don't have sewers. Will the properties, residential properties along Champlain Road that don't have sewers, are they going to be connected to these sewers?
It's not a question for the applicant, I don't think. The applicant is required to provide a sanitary sewer system that conveys flow from this development to Hillsborough MUA's existing infrastructure. How that impacts surrounding properties is not up to us. If a sewer main were to be extended across, let's say, your front yard, and you would have the ability to tie into it, that would be your choice. Nobody would connect you to a township system. If sewer was in the vicinity that you could connect to it, you would have that option. I believe the issue most of the properties in this area have right now is there is no sewer.
Exactly, there are no sewers.
The applicant is responsible to construct a sewer main on the property and off the property to get sewer from their development to existing infrastructure.
Existing infrastructure. Where is that existing infrastructure?
I have been working with Scott Lynn, the executive director of the Hillsborough MUA, on reviewing township infrastructure maps to come up with the most logical path to get sewer from this property to existing infrastructure.
Who's the gentleman you're working with, Scott?
Scott Lynn is the executive director of the Hillsborough MUA.
Scott Lynn.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Lonnie Galinka, 2011 Roosevelt Ave. I just want to bring up one more time that Roosevelt Avenue, how narrow it is. You know, just hearing everybody talk, and it just seems like this is just going to happen. And nobody likes it. It's just going to happen. And the people in here, it's only a small group, but I haven't asked everybody. I don't think anybody thinks this is a good idea, but it's going to happen. This Roosevelt Avenue is a narrow road. So these people are going to be coming walking down the street. It's dangerous. And what happened was doing the right thing. This is just a poor idea. It's a bad location, and that's all there is to it. There's so many other locations. I don't have any suggestions, but this is a poor location. All right, you have a little boundary where it's not the wetlands. It's backing right up to it. Everyone knows it's going to cause a problem. People come here and document all this stuff, and everything's great. You know, everyone's covered. But when it happens, it's the quality of life. The people who live in this area, that's who get affected. And no one seems to really be concerned about that because everyone dotted their I's, they crossed their T's, and everybody's good. So let's just build the place, right? It's a horrible idea, and there's going to be serious incidents in front of clients and down my road. It's a bad idea.
Any other additional comments, questions? Okay.
Maria Janusik. This project is for satisfying the affordable housing requirements of Hillsborough Township. How much more is required of Hillsborough Township because you do have an RCA, or had an RCA, Regional Contribution Agreement with Manville Borough, where I'm not
Yeah,
sure how many
those
there
no
were
longer exist.
properties, and then, what, excuse me?
That program no longer exists.
That no longer exists, but that satisfied part of your Hillsborough's...
Not for this
No,
round.
not for this round.
Not for this round, you're talking about
And
the
then you
second
had
round.
a regional contribution agreement with Phillipsburg that also.
No longer
That no longer applies and no longer applies to
So,
this
so
round.
what is the current requirement? How much was already affordable housing provided by other developments in Hillsborough, and what is the current requirement?
Hundreds of units have been provided throughout the last nearly 15 years, and there are additional applications to come.
How many more, what is the COA requirement, or is that no longer, there are
COA
changes?
no longer
changes.
exists, and that is an ongoing negotiation between this municipality and the Fair Share Housing Center.
So COA
So-
no longer exists?
Not in its current fashion, it doesn't.
So who
There
is?
is no COA number, the courts.
We did a town hall about 3 months ago to talk about the affordable housing obligations. I can tell you that everyone up on this board, no one is happy of what we need to do, but the requirements exist. They are state mandated, and we don't really have any ability to choose to not do it. We do not have our final number yet. It's still a negotiation. We're what's known as a court town. So eventually, we will have an agreement with the courts and with Fair Share Housing as to the final number that we're going to be required for the current round of affordable housing. We don't know that yet, but this development is a portion of that requirement. It's not fully, it doesn't fully satisfy it. It's just a piece.
So the requirement now is through the Fair Share Housing?
No, it's through the courts,
Through the courts?
as mandated by the New Jersey Supreme Court in a 2015 decision.
2015?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Regarding the issues that we talked about, and a suggestion was made to write to our congressman, to write to our senator, who is the senator for Hillsborough?
It's the United States Senator is Robert Menendez and Cory Booker. The state senator is Raymond Bateman. The two assembly people, I believe, are Roy Friedland and Andrew
Roy Fryman and Andrew
Zwicker.
So for this district, it's Senator Christopher Kip Bateman?
Correct. It's the 16th
Okay,
legislative.
and how much input does Attorney William Willard from Senator Bateman's law firm, who is the township attorney, how much input does he have in regard to all of this affordable housing and environmental and all of those
I'm not going to
issues?
answer that question, because I don't know what you're insinuating there, so we're not going to answer that question. And that's the kind of stuff, when you put it on the record, Ms. Janusik, to undermine people's credibility and to assassinate their character is the kind of stuff that we won't tolerate here. I'm sorry, I'm not doing it.
Senator Bateman's attorney, law firm
No.
attorney.
Come to the microphone.
Come to the microphone.
I'm not doing anything other than stating.
You know exactly what you're doing.
Right. And you know what? The person or persons that you really should be directing your anger at would be President Senate Steve Sweeney and Assembly Speaker Coughlin, who are refusing to post legislation that has been proposed by Senator Bateman to resolve this affordable housing issue, or some people may call it crisis. So I would suggest to go to Trenton and go speak with both of those gentlemen and ask them why are they refusing to post legislation that would resolve this issue. Okay. I had a flashback from last year.
Good job. Motion to close.
Okay. So if there are no more comments or questions, I think we are ready.
Motion to close public hearing?
We'll make a motion to close.
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So,
What is before this board is an application to provide a subdivision for a lot, for block 86, lot 21, into two somewhat equal lots of lot 2101 and lot 2102, and to provide, and to approve the development preliminary and final major site plan approval, see bulk variances and waivers, to develop proposed lot 21.01 Phase 1, to construct a multifamily residential development consisting of 13 two-story buildings, clubhouse building, and associated stormwater parking and improvements on property governed by the Sherman redevelopment plan as well as all of the agreements made by the applicant during the application, and the conditions and requirements established by the township engineer, the township planning director, the fire marshal, and all of the related governmental entities that will require approval from subject to that have been discussed within this application and are contained in the reports.
Thank you.
The only add I would is the review of the environmental reports by the Environmental Commission.
Right. Okay.
Okay, with that being said, I'd like to entertain a motion. Anyone would like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay. Any additional discussion from the dais on this application? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, just a quick item. There was a lot that was discussed on the COA requirements, how it impacts our town. I'd be remiss, I know Ms. Haas was here to talk about the impact, obviously, on the school system here in Hillsborough. We're painfully aware of that, as I'm sure other towns are feeling the same, because there's certain things we can't weigh into this. Schools, fire, police. So we are being forced. I think that's clear. Hopefully our elected officials at the Senate and Assembly level will hear that, maybe through joint workings with our Board of Education, other towns, so forth. We'll maybe push them for that, because basically it's an unfunded mandate, and we're having to absorb that, and that falls squarely on the shoulders of the taxpayers. So I did want to mention that. I do appreciate that being discussed this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just as we indicated earlier, affordable housing is a reality in New Jersey. Every municipality is facing the same concerns. I wish I could tell you that this matter would be resolved and the legislature would deem the requirements no longer placed upon us, but that's not where we are today. So as a municipality, it would be irresponsible for us to not work towards compliance with the current requirements that the courts and fair share we know will place upon us. This development, while recognizing some of the concerns that have been addressed here tonight, this is 100% affordable development. What that means is that if it was only a 20% set aside, we would have 4 times the number of units in this development. Instead, we have 88 instead of close to 400 units. That's the reality of where we are, and the fact that we could reduce the total number of build-out and make this a fully affordable development to help comply with our affordable housing requirements and not overburden in terms of additional development is one of the reasons that this development is being considered. It's one of the reasons that as a municipality we redeveloped the property to allow for 100% affordable development, and it's one that given the alternative of what could have happened or what might happen if we had another development that was under consideration, this one has significantly less impact on the total municipality than another development. So I just want everyone to understand why this is being done the way it is, and why at 100% development, 100% affordable, it does lessen the burden significantly on the municipality.
Mr. Mayor, for the purposes of the record, at a 20% set aside to get 88 affordable housing units, a developer would basically be seeking a 440-unit development with 352 market rate units in order to produce this kind of development. And though the township has tried to, as you know, increase the set-aside amount, you don't get this kind of set-aside without 100% affordable.
Thank you. Any last final comments before we go to roll call? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Scobah?
Yes.
Mr. Weinstein?
Yes.
Beason?
Before I vote, I'd like to thank the public for coming out. You know, it's good to be engaged and ask questions. I know when I first got on this board, I asked, why can't we just say no? You know, why can't we just freeze everything the way it is? Why can't we just redesignate everything else farmland and not have to build and keep everything just the way it is and keep the character of our town the way it is? Unfortunately, municipal land use law, the state, the county, it doesn't allow for that. Proper planning needs to be put in place, and I won't reiterate, but you know, what's going on with fair share housing, it's a reality that we have to deal with, and we have to abide by that. So I reluctantly say yes.
Mr. Wagner?
Yes.
Mr. Astag?
Yes.
Mr. Senator Romita?
Yes.
Committeeman Devine?
Yes.
Mayor Delcor?
Yes.
Chair Sarachi?
And I just want to add one last thing, and I know the mayor had mentioned this about a town hall meeting. If you have an opportunity to go to the township website to see, it's a very comprehensive, I think it was, what, about 2-3 hours? And it covered, you know, from A to Z on how we got here, where we are with affordable housing, and, you know, what are the constraints and options available. It was very well, you know, put together, some very good, you know, witness, well, I won't call them witnesses, but experts stating and providing that background. So with that, I'll be saying yes. Okay. So just a couple of housekeeping things before adjournment. We do not have any meetings in August.
That is correct, Mr. Chairman. I've been asked to poll the board, though, for the September 5th meeting. Is anybody here that knows they can't make September 5th? Looks like everybody's available. All right,
I may not
Ken?
be available.
Okay. If that should change in the interim, please let the board know at earliest convenience. Thank you.
And with that, I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. We're adjourned. See everybody in September. Thank you, everyone.
Yes,